You're listening to Podcast PXN,
a video game podcast
delivering player experience news.
Let's go!
Fix what you broke. What's up, guys, and welcome to Podcast PXN, episode 236. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Prindle, aka Dan is DTM on Twitter, and I am joined over Discord, not by the Nintendo aficionado and artist extraordinaire, Roshan Warner. He will rejoin us next week if he doesn't join us later in the show. But we are joined by the host of Large Popcorn and video producer at DualShockers, Christian Macias, at ISO Christian.
Happy Easter. Almost.
Happy early Easter. Yes, sir. And the heroic Helldiver and fellow Spartan, Gage Dempster, at Gilbo Biggins.
Good to be here. Good to be here with you, Dan.
Good to be here.
And funny you bring up Helldivers, Daniel.
Yeah. Here we go. Here we go. It's already begun.
Some of us just care about democracy more than others, and that's bound to happen.
Yeah.
But
Wait a minute. I was trying to cater to the democracy of everyone who is in our party, you know? There's a totality.
All the time.
What?
Nothing.
I was
I
trying
care
to
about my friends.
I was trying to do this to everyone. I was trying to merge everyone together and be whole once again. But alas, thank you to everyone joining us live and participating in the chat. Just as a reminder, we are live each and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time on youtube.com/@podcastpxn and twitch.tv/podcastpxn as well. The topic of the show this week, guys, is a big breakdown by us on the big Judas look we got and Ken Levine interview that Ryan McCaffrey and Jeff Keighley sat down with him to talk some Judas. So we will have that in the topic of the show. But first, the show always starts with the quick bites. So let's go ahead and jump right in. First quick bite. Shinji Mikami has announced that he has started his new studio, and it is titled Kamoi Incorporated. Definitely not a corpo name there. But no, I'm excited for this. Man has a great track record for me. Resident Evil 4, the original, was fantastic. And then he went on to create The Evil Within, which fucking bring it back already. So I'm interested to see what he does at his new studio.
Don't forget, Killer 7. And what's the other one? Devil May Cry.
There you go. Devil May Cry. Nobody wants to hear about how Devil May Cry by Ninja Theory was actually the first Devil May Cry I played, and I loved it. But
What'd you think? Yeah, I kind of enjoyed that one too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different, but I like it. Listen, it's not the same Devil May Cry as the other ones, but
yeah,
it's not to say this one can't also be enjoyable. I get it. I was there with you.
hell yeah. Suck it, DMC fans. I don't know. Just kidding.
I think they would be happy that you enjoy it. No?
I guess. I thought there was a lot of like traditional.
That's what it was called. It's called DMC.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yep. Sorry. Yep. Fair enough. The next quick bite. We have a new game studio announcement coming next week as well. And the studio is named already. It's Yellow Brick Games, and IGN has the IGN First on April 2nd to reveal what the game will actually be. So one of their visual design directors posted on Twitter, "This isn't just a game reveal. It is our new studio, our new team, and our new IP. Immensely proud of us and the future we are weaving together. Stay tuned. We're going big." Is it funny that when you sent this, I thought that the Yellow Brick Games was like Yellow Brick Road, like this was a Wizard of Oz game or something?
I would be less interested in that if that was IP based.
Right. Yeah.
But also, like, I don't know.
kind of a cool idea. I mean, if they were to twist it a little bit and do it.
You should look up what the post credit scene is of Lies of P. That shit was infuriating.
Oh.
Infuriating, like
Shit.
bad.
For me, yeah, I was like,
Okay.
this Why? Anyway.
This
His
isn't Lies
nose,
of PXN.
his nose grew
Oh, nice,
7
dude.
times in the end credits.
Actually, lying in that game is a good thing, and the more you lie, the more a picture of you, the nose grows in like the picture, and
Oh.
when it reaches a certain amount, you can pick the nose off, and it's a weapon.
What?
Fun fact.
That's
Fun fact.
that's a cool gameplay mechanic, but isn't that completely antithetical to like the whole thing of Pinocchio?
Actually, no, it works.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take your word for it.
Interesting. Toys for Bob, guys. They used to be part of Activision. They agreed to separate from Microsoft, and they now have a deal in place for their first independent developed game with none other than Microsoft. So I guess this is good news for Toys for Bob to be able to have a contract secured so that their developers can continue being employed. So that's awesome, but it is kind of funny that their first game is going to just be with the company that they just left.
Listen, as long as they don't have any mandates to work on Call of Duty, then I'm fine with whoever they partner with.
It's true. Yeah. And what else is true? But the 30th anniversary of Elder Scrolls 6 has just happened. We got a post from Bethesda Game Studios. I won't read this whole thing, but I will read this little blurb that we got from them that says, last but not least, yes, we are in development on the next chapter of The Elder Scrolls 6. Even now, returning to Tamriel and playing early builds has us filled with the same joy, excitement, and promise of adventure. So maybe this game's a little closer than we think. It's already playable, ready to go.
We think perchance they're maybe trying to aim for a launch title for the new Xbox.
Probably, yeah. I could see that.
What are you saying? Like, what, this year, next year?
No,
No,
next-
2026, right?
You meant like the next
Generation,
iteration.
yes.
Yeah, I understand. My fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
If
it's
that
2026, I could see that. I could see that lining up as long as they're able to, get the quality to where it needs to be. But then also, they might just launch anyways. Who knows? We'll see.
It's true. It's coming next week. No, I'm just kidding. It's not coming next week. Don't listen to me. Come on, guys. Give me a pity laugh or something. Fuck.
You gotta earn that. You gotta earn that, dude.
Yeah.
Kirik says he has a theory. Starfield didn't do well, so they are ramping up production on Elder Scrolls 6, and that's bad. Well, I mean, there hasn't been a whole hell of a lot of updates on Starfield, so that wouldn't be too surprising.
And I don't know.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know that's necessarily bad. I think that's just kind of how it works to a certain extent. Like if they had released Starfield and if it was the next Skyrim as they wanted and everybody was talking about it, and it was crazy and it was everywhere, then obviously they would keep the ball rolling. They'd keep supporting it. But I think Starfield is kind of it was another Bethesda game. Some people love it, some people hate it, but it definitely wasn't Skyrim 2.0. So I don't blame them for shifting their priorities internally and maybe going, all right, let's just double down on the next Skyrim and make it, the next Skyrim.
I routinely go when I think of Skyrim. I routinely think back to that Nakey Jakey video that came out like a month after, and like that solidified like everything that I couldn't maybe vocalize about my issues like playing that game, and put it like in context with Skyrim. Sorry, Starfield with Skyrim, and yeah, I don't know like what you could do to get a player base back. Granted, a single player game, but like to get more people to come back to Starfield. I may have misspoken a few times. I'm sorry. I apologize. But yeah, I mean, if the way to do it,
the video about Starfield that Nakey Jakey made.
Yes, thank you.
Helped you. Yeah, okay.
Is what yes. Like I'm sure if there's like a substantial DLC drop that like has the like interconnected quests and exploration that people are missing from Skyrim, that's a way to do it. But like if maybe if Kirik is right, if the answer is like just focus heads down on just top to bottom work on the next thing, then yeah, that's a way to do it with Elder Scrolls 6 for sure.
Selfishly, I'm very happy that they're quickly moving on, if that is the case, because that means we're even closer to the next Fallout game, which is my favorite Bethesda IP. So
I agree with you. But at the same time, for me, no Fallout has reached the heights of Skyrim. So it's funny that I agree with you. I would pick Fallout over Elder Scrolls in a heartbeat. But I'm just excited for the next Elder Scrolls because of only Skyrim. It's very, very interesting.
yeah.
I gotta say real quick, getting Starfield and Skyrim intermixed and me trying to talk for whatever reason broke my brain. It was so hard to talk, and then I got nervous staring at you guys, which broke my brain even more. That I got a little bit sweaty. It reminded me of the first time I hosted this podcast. How sweaty I got up. It's so funny.
Your DNA right now thinks that you're being chased by a lion in the forest, but really you're just kind of mixing up Skyrim and Starfield.
I will not bring this up. It's too much of an aside. I had a nightmare the other night.
We tried to, convince you that this podcast isn't the fucking Emmys or anything, and you were just like, I'm fucking sweating like bullets over here.
I'm gonna say it. I downloaded a sleep app to help me sleep because I told you guys privately about like my issues with sleeping.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that it does is record audio in the middle of the night when you're making noise. It also helps like identify if you have like symptoms of sleep apnea. And the other night I was having a nightmare, and I woke up promptly after, and I clocked the time. And in the morning I looked at my recordings, and just like a little few minutes before I woke up, at that time there was noise. Like I was being recorded, me making noise, going like in the middle of the night. This is a nightmare, dude.
Shit.
That's spooky.
Fuck. Probably fuck.
It's funny.
I don't know.
Probably fuck. I'm
All
sorry,
right.
video games.
Yes, video games. There is a new PS5 console feature that is coming for automatic game clips. And this opt-in experience will let your PS5 automatically capture a game clip when you complete an activity in supported titles. Then it will be reviewed by a moderator, and if approved, your video will be published as a game help hint for PlayStation players to watch, learn from, and rate, explains Sabrina Meditz, Senior Director of Product Management for the PS5 platform experience. That came from The Verge. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, very interesting feature. I think this is cool for the people that will use it. I don't know that I would use it, but
As long as it's optional, this is cool. But if it's
having an opt-in for sure.
Yeah,
right, exactly. I don't want because then it is like, is it immediately uploaded? Is it stored? Is this going to be taking up space on your PlayStation 5, which already only comes with what, 700 gigs? Like it's
There's no way. It's definitely server side. If it's like it's probably like uploading data to whatever Sony's using. There's no if it's stored locally, that'd be so stupid.
Right, I agree with you, but I just mean like, doesn't it have to be stored locally and then uploaded? And then does it automatically delete the clip afterward? I don't know. It's
that's
just,
I would need to know. Yeah, I would need to know if it's using the like automatic video that the PS5 by default has on. Like when you get a trophy, it saves whatever 30 seconds of video. Like if it's using that, then I have that off, so I will never be taking part in that.
right.
interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it probably won't make a material difference to most people, but my mind just goes to the fact that it is technically, it's like, okay, is this reading and writing, or is this sort of slowly chipping away at people's solid state drive without necessarily them wanting it? But if it's opt-in and if it's handled well, then this is a pretty cool thing to for like, yeah, the game tips and the game help thing. Like that's cool. Like if you defeat a boss a certain way and then somebody else can look at that clip and be like, oh, okay, this is how this person did it. That's cool. But I want it to be opt-in and I want to know the specifics of how it all works.
I will say, no one talks about game help because like who's really using it? But I'm that weird dude that like will check it out for a lot of games to see like what the quality of like, because it's on the developers to do that. And weirdly enough, a lot of developers actually do a pretty good job of like utilizing that feature. It's just kind of hidden behind pretty, what would you say, like less intuitive menus. I will put it that way on the console. But some of them are actually pretty good.
So opt in if you want to if you want to jam with us. Otherwise,
I'm okay.
we're okay.
And if it is opt-in, are you going to be using my name, or am I going to get credit? Can you opt in for that?
Get some money back for it? You know? I don't know. That'd be cool. All right, some cool news, hopefully, here. Standalone Game Informer magazine subscriptions are now available. They posted on their Twitter account here. We're proud to announce the new standalone Game Informer magazine subscription. Get 10 issues of print in your mailbox and also read the new issue digitally, all for just $19.91 for a full year. Please support us by signing up today. I put in here as like a side note on my behalf, I thought maybe this is possibly signaling an attempt to get out from under GameStop. I hope that that's the case, and I hope that they have the opportunity to get out from their grasp, but I guess only time will tell with that.
I got my subscription. I decided to do it. It's $20 for a year. It feels like I'm stealing almost for the work they do, which is crazy.
Yeah, indeed. But at least GameStop's not, laying anyone off, right? Oh, wait. GameStop has confirmed more job cuts, and analysts are calling out their unsustainable sales decline. So yeah, GameStop not in a great state here. GameStop's fourth quarter saw $1.794 billion in sales. Man, that's such shit. I'm just kidding. Compared to $2.226 billion in the prior year's fourth quarter, net income was $63.1 million for the fourth quarter, compared to net income of $48.2 million for the prior year's fourth quarter. While net income improved for the fiscal year, the dramatic sales decline is worrying analysts. Reuters reported on comments from Wedbush Securities analyst Michael Pachter, who said an increasing mix of digital downloads is hurting physical retail, and there's simply no reason to go to a store if a consumer can just order a game and download it immediately. Essentially, GameStop had, as of February 3rd, GameStop had about 8,000 full-time staff and between 13,000 and 18,000 part-time staff. It had 11,000 full-time staff and between 14 and 27,000 part-time staff in 2023. So that's quite a decent cut there of at least a few thousand people. As a result of the job cuts, expenses fell 21.2%. So, all right. Got to make those margins for those stockholders that don't exist anymore after the meme that was buying their stock for a minute there.
Right.
The weird thing about GameStop is like, it seems like physical media isn't necessarily in a decline. Like there's still an audience there, like in both movies and games. Like collector's editions sell out pretty fast, and like I don't know how you would end up having to do it, but like if there were GameStop exclusive physical collector's editions of games, like I think that would be enough to, hopefully it would be enough to like get more people in the doors to go and actually shop in there. One would hope, but yeah, I mean that's just me speculating. I don't know how businesses work. It's it's kind of sad to think about like the decline of GameStop when that it was like so much of like I'm sure all three of our childhoods to some extent, midnight releases and stuff. But yeah, I kind of forgot what the whole NFT thing that they tried doing for the past 2 years.
Well, that's the problem, is that all this this decline is not necessarily. It sucks because whenever they make these sort of statements and are addressing the business and all that, it's always that it's out of their control, when really, anyone with a brain could have been like, hey, maybe don't invest in all this NFT stuff, and hey, maybe don't double down on all of these ridiculous business decisions that you've made. Like it's unfortunate because like you can make the argument like, yeah, a lot of people like downloading their games and buying digital, sure, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a place for storefront brick and mortar stores. I mean, in the same way that a lot of people like streaming, but to me that's not a good excuse to get rid of movie theaters. And yeah, it's it's on one hand, it's hard not to kind of be like, well, you did it to yourself because they really did do it to themselves. But at the same time, like you said, it's the end of an era, and it's something that I'm not really ready to hang up on personally. Like, I'd love for this business to kind of stick around and to continue to flourish. But obviously, again, through the changing of the business and through their own foolish ways, it does seem to be an inevitability that the ship is going down.
Yeah, and Kirik says, I'm for physical all the way, but they are screwing themselves. They need to innovate. I have started liking my visits to GameStop less and less. And he also agrees with Christian and says, I would totally buy collector's editions from them, but they are not selling them.
Right.
Yeah, dude. Like, I think about the, like, how Best Buy used to have, like, their own editions of like steelbook movies. It sucks that they don't do that anymore, like or physical at all. Like, I don't know. In a perfect world, GameStop would figure out like partnerships with several publishers to get like different versions. Do you remember how you would get like pre-order bonuses depending on where you went to go pre-order your game? Something like that in terms of like having a dedicated like collector's edition or like a steelbook version of a game. I don't know. I think would do okay, but or at least would do better than the NFT thing.
Right. I mean, well, and then also it's like, why not tap into, because they're already a household name. I mean, that's kind of changing now. Like we said, the ways of video games in the sort of marketplace is changing, but they were at one point a household name for video games. Why not capitalize on the market that a lot of mom and pop shops do, where it's like, why not offer older consoles and retro consoles and reselling? Why not tap into, now again, the reason why not, because this would require money and training and manpower. Why not offer in-store repairs? That's a solution for somebody who buys a unique console and doesn't want to follow through with the Microsoft warranty, because Microsoft will just take it, an employee will be like, sweet, thanks, here's a regular one back to you. But in the same way that you go to these phone repair shops, why not capitalize on that and have your GameStop to be your place to go and like, hey, my console's not working, do you have somebody trained here that can take a look at it? Like, there's tons of ways they could go, but of course they went the people at top don't really necessarily specialize in the ecosystem that they do business in, and they're just thinking of what's trendy, what's cool, NFTs, let's do that. But I think there's tons of different roads they could have gone down that would have made GameStop relevant to its demographic, which is gamers.
Did you see the like thing that they were trying or were going to try, which was transforming a few GameStops into like lounge experiences like you would see at local mom and pop shops, where you like come here and play D&D, or like come here and like play Fortnite on a wired LAN connection. You don't have to do that like at all stores all at once, but you pick a few stores in like major cities to like test that out and see how it does.
Right.
I would think you would get an audience in that regard.
For sure. And I mean, even that is in the right
direction. Drop off your fucking kids to play Fortnite with their friends at this GameStop, I don't know.
For sure, absolutely. Like, that's the right direction. That's the way they should be kind of going. But instead, it just seems like they keep wanting the business to suddenly pick up again, and it's not. So then they're like, oh, well, we gotta shut down because it's not going how we want. But I mean, maybe the course isn't right. I don't know.
Dude, my local GameStop, when I was a kid, like for a long time, was in this nice building. Like, I would go in, there was like at least 6 people working every time I went in there, maybe 5 people, but there was always a lot of employees there. It was always a cool place to go. Now I went to get what was it, Mario? I think Mario. Why am I forgetting? Wonder. Yes, thank you. I went to pick up Mario Wonder because I got like a coupon or whatever for it. And I went in there and I was like, what the fuck? They moved locations, first off, which I didn't even know. Google Maps still had them at their old location. Their new location's literally like a fucking hole in the wall. It's tiny. And I go in and there's one person working. And I'm just like, this place is just a shithole now. It's just...
Right.
Ugh. Terrible. Get better, GameStop.
I'm depressed. What a depressing quick bite that was.
Well, let's get into a less depressing quick bite then. Phil Spencer has talked about wanting Epic Games Store among other storefronts on the Xbox consoles. In an interview with Polygon, Spencer talked about how the console market is flat overall, meaning that the same people are buying consoles, but the overall market isn't growing, and that one of the ways to provide more options for players would be to open consoles up. Hypothetically, this could mean allowing players using an Xbox console to buy games from the Xbox Store or from the Epic Games Store. Consider our history as the Windows company, Spencer said. Nobody would blink twice if I said, hey, when you're using a PC, you get to decide the type of experience you have by picking where to buy games. There's real value in that. Spencer also added, if I want to play on a gaming PC, then I feel like I'm more a continuous part of a gaming ecosystem as a whole, as opposed to on console, my gaming is kind of sharded, to use a gaming term, based on those different closed ecosystems that I have to play across. And one of the interesting points to this as well is Diablo 4, when that comes to Game Pass, apparently that is through Battle.net. So I believe that it's the first game that is not natively in the Windows Store that is coming to Game Pass. So it's going to interface with Battle.net to actually get it, which is very interesting about the future possibilities of maybe Steam having that functionality in the future, which I think would be a huge win if they were to do that for Game Pass games. But I don't know.
Gage is clenching his fist.
My gut reaction to this is it's so tough because I've talked in the past about having Steam functionality on Xbox, but I don't know, the way that he's talking about it here, it seems so overcomplicated, and I'm wondering how it's actually going to work down to the nitty-gritty details. Because if it's just a storefront, but you're still buying the Xbox version of a game, how does this change anything for developers, right? Because consoles have this really rigorous sort of certification process. Does this really change anything for developers? Are they still making an Xbox version of the game, and you're just now confusing casual video game players as to which storefront they need to? I don't know. Because Steam eventually making it to Xbox is something that I think would be fantastic, and I've wanted for a very long time. But in my mind, the way that happens is that Xbox sort of does some sort of back-end deal, and they sort of code Xbox as, okay, this is now a PC, this is the types of hardware that it is, so any games that are on Steam that can run on PC equivalent hardware, they can just come to Xbox and you can play the PC version of that game. So if this is what he's talking about, I think that would be interesting, but I don't know, for something about this, and I don't like why. Nothing is by accident, especially when there's CEOs talking. The fact that he brought up Epic Games is like why Epic Game Store is not great, and it's not, it's not where I think Steam still has what, a 73% market share. I don't know. I'm just thinking about a lot of the fact that a lot of the Epic Games Store exclusives that are on there are already on Xbox. So I don't know. This is puzzling to me. My gut reaction to this is negative, even though I kind of want what he's talking about, but I just don't know if he's talking about what I'm thinking about, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Something to ponder. Glenn says in the chat, when I was younger, they used to have something like that in my town of Lindsay across some of my bank called Eland. It was set up like that. They had a bunch of computers and used to be able to play like No Borderlands 2. Wow. Glenn, that sentence I love you, brother. I don't know what the fuck you were trying to say there. But I think he was talking about the GameStop stuff, but that sentence did not flow well.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a community, like a community center, except instead of having all these different things, you know, like I had a community center that, there's a pool and a gym and all that stuff, and then there was also a computer center where like you can go and do all that stuff. But I think what he's talking about is like, kind of what we're talking about with GameStop is just having the sort of computer and gaming part of it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm wondering if, just going back to the Epic Games sort of thing, and also the Steam thing that Gage said, I'm wondering if like Phil Spencer, kind of thinking this out, getting different game stores on the Xbox, would have something to do with what he said about like the industry not growing, that the same people are buying consoles, but also more like waning console sales in general. Like, I'm wondering if the thought process is like, obviously there's an untapped potential with PC players that we're like bringing Xbox games to them, and they're in the marketplace that way. But what if it was the other way around? What if PC players were having to go buy an Xbox so they can play Xbox games there, but also not feel like they're abandoning their PC games as well?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, yeah, I mean, on paper it does, but I'm just trying to think of, maybe I'm just being pessimistic. I'm thinking I'm being realistic, but I mean, it could be pessimism, but it's like in today's days of like DRMs and all that stuff, like I just don't see this. How is this gonna end up being pro consumer and easier for the consumer? I don't know that it is. Does this mean that every game I've bought on Epic Games I just get for free on Xbox? I don't see that happening. I definitely don't see that happening with Steam. And again, is it just the games that have Xbox ports already? In which case, why not just buy them on? I don't know.
No, I think you're right, Gage. I think it depends on what this looks like, because like I was saying with the Diablo 4 example, if they were to go and make a deal with Valve for Steam, where all your Game Pass games on PC will also be available on Steam for no charge if you have Game Pass. Like, if they made a deal like that, that was inclusive of their deal with bringing Steam to the Xbox storefront as well. Like, I think that would be something that would be really cool. But yeah, it would definitely depend on what they come up with.
And that's why it's interesting he used Epic Game Store, because that type of thing you're talking about, I could see that happening with Steam. Steam has a track record of being very pro-consumer, and Xbox is trying its best to perceive to kind of come off as that as well. So that makes sense. But the fact that he used Epic Games as a comparison, and again, not by mistake, these are well thought out, is kind of like, well, that doesn't, I don't know. Very interesting. But that what you're talking about, that would be very, very cool. We just have to see what the fuck he's talking about, because he's just kind of throwing things out there.
It's true. That's true. All right. We're going to orbit on up to space and find No Man's Sky. Orbital update is upon us. Of course, they've had about a bajillion updates. This one includes vast stations, ship customization for the first time, new shops, procedurally generated interiors, guilds, new base parts, ship switching, reputation discounts, trading surges, salvage parts, guild donations, fleet missions, and huge station exteriors. We got a little look at it as well. This game continues to add.
And you cannot spend money on this game aside from the initial purchase, even if you wanted to, which is kind of incredible.
Hey, that's sick.
Like,
if this were Destiny, you would need to spend like $200.
Right. I think this is major content update, not just fucking, fixing stuff or adding quality of life. This is major update. I think we're into the 30s now, which is kind of like insane how they went from being a game that you can point and look at and be like, hey, this is how you don't do video game stuff, to now they're one of the games that you can point and look at and be like, hey, this is the best possible way to support your player base. So I will never personally get tired of shouting them out, because they're incredible. He could have cut and run. That would have been super easy for him. And he not only made up for it, but has kind of just gone the extra mile. Crazy. Ship customization is huge. Kind of interesting. To me, this signals that we are maybe closer to Light No Fire than some people think, because that was kind of the main hook of this game, is that every ship that you come across was kind of procedurally generated, and if you wanted a certain ship that looked a certain way with the right color combination, you kind of had to go exploring the star systems and hope that you found it, kind of like hunting for Pokemon or something. So the fact that they're adding that is kind of crazy, because I don't necessarily believe that they couldn't have done it before. So that might be signaling something, that this is kind of, we're getting close to Light No Fire. But very cool. Hello Games continues to crush it.
You guys want to hear a fun fact about No Man's Sky?
Let's hear it.
All right, what's actually a fun fact about me? I went to one of the PSXs that I went to a while back. It was the one in Anaheim. In the morning, when it was about to they were about to let us indoors. Also, like Sean Layden, we met Sean Layden at this PSX because my friends and I were at the front of the line, and he had gotten there in the middle of the night, and then came back in the morning. And in the morning, Sean Layden was handing out games. The dude behind us crowded me and my friends and got in front of us and got a game from Sean Layden. That fucking sucked. But Sean Layden then looked at me and my friend and was giving us a copy of the game of No Man's Sky. My friend had a bit more reach than I did, so he got it. And yeah, there's my story on how I almost got No Man's Sky for free from Sean Layden.
But you did get to breathe his air.
Yeah. He exhaled on me.
Christian,
so you like that?
And that's something your friends can never take from you.
Christian, you know who else we got to breathe the air of? The composer of all the the original Halo games, Martin O'Donnell. You know, he's running for
Congressman. Yeah, Congressman Martin O'Donnell.
Oh, God help us. Moving into our last quick bite, GDC developers are apparently not optimistic about Xbox hardware or PS5 Pro. In a new podcast from GamesIndustry.biz, the head of the outlet, Chris String, explained that while at the 2024 GDC, he heard that a flatlining Xbox hardware sales in Europe has made some companies question what the point is to continue support of Microsoft's brand and its various consoles due to a declining audience and lack of growth. The other thing I heard it from a very prominent company, and one not so prominent was Xbox's performance in Europe is just flatlining. You can follow our monthly coverage in the games market, and you can see that Xbox sales are falling, and it's been falling throughout the last year, and it's falling even harder this year. And then in regards to the PS5 Pro stuff, sorry.
There was one quote that this is the one that made me think about the Series S parity thing.
Okay.
Right after that, Dring further said that one major company who reportedly released a big game last year said, "I don't know why we bothered supporting it." And this was on the backs of last week there was a game that was announced, but it was only announced for PC and PlayStation 5, even though it was a third party game. And they're like, why no Xbox announcement? And they said it would hurt the game's quality if we were to do that, to work on that right now, but an Xbox version is coming at some point later. It's okay, well that was strange.
Interesting. That continues to be an issue with having the multiple console market of Xbox. Right. And then for the PS5 Pro stuff, Dring also says, "I'll be honest, I didn't meet a single person that understood the point of a PS5 Pro," explained Dring on the podcast. He also claimed that developers didn't seem to feel that they needed it because they weren't really making the most of the PS5 in the first place. Dring surmised the situation by noting that this generation doesn't even seem to have gotten started, let alone needs a mid-generation upgrade. Definitely a fair point. I think we talked about that, last week or 2 weeks ago?
That was last week. The topic of the show is, do we need them? And
that's right.
It's kind of validating to hear from developers that they're the same sentiment was going around GDC. They don't feel like they need them either.
Right.
It's extremely validating, and it makes it feel I don't know how much extra we're going to get out of pro versions of these current consoles, and it makes it easier for me to look away when we inevitably get the release and the price point. For me, I don't feel like I need to spend my money to get the best product out there, because it's really not much of a difference between the two.
Indeed. And we might be getting more hardware, because in our first Street Meet item, Xbox may have a new Xbox Series X that is white and all digital on the way, and it is expected to be priced under $499 with improved heatsink but no major enhancements, releasing this summer from Wario64. I think this
summer.
Yeah, that adds a bit more context. It says under $499, not at $499. So I feel like that's kind of what I was thinking when I sent that in our DMs. If this is a price reduction, it makes sense to, if it's maybe slightly smaller with no disk drive and it's a cheaper console to try to get people invested in the ecosystem without, sacrificing for fidelity with the Series S. It would make sense, but how much cheaper? I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like.
If I were an Xbox, and maybe this would be horrible, I would use this as like the introduction of phasing out Series S's. Like, it would suck in the short run, but the long run would be you kind of, this is off the back to the GDC thing, you hopefully would start getting developers, third-party developers, more interested in making Xbox versions of games that are releasing, because they don't have the extra, they wouldn't have to deal with the extra headache of like, now I'm like, if I'm going to do an Xbox port of the game, I have to worry about making sure both versions of the game are working, which is really like double the work.
You're saying kind of like filter out that Series S player base by getting, but that would mean that we would need a really steep price reduction to kind of bring it closer to the Series S, to try and switch some of those Series S people to the Series X.
I mean, you don't have to do it. You don't have to have it be Series S priced, but $100 cheaper than the normal Xbox Series X.
I think the problem with that is the Series S reportedly is selling more than the Series X. I don't know,
because it's cheaper.
Right. But like, what do you do to all those fans that own that box only? Like, sure, there's people like in my situation where I have a Series X and S for different purposes, but for the person that goes out and just buys a Series S only because it's a more affordable console, if you're coming out and saying,
sure,
we're not going to support this anymore, that doesn't put a good image, I guess, that you're already dropping 100%. Support. I think that
I didn't even think about that. You're totally right. Yeah.
I think that you're onto something though, because I think that possibly when the handheld, if that does come to fruition, when that comes to light, I think a lot of the things that we've been talking about, like the parity with Series S and X, I think that goes away because a handheld is a different experience entirely. So you don't necessarily need that for that device. And I feel like that device is going to be cheaper, so it's going to be your Series S-esque device. So maybe at that point they would drop selling the Series S, which would then signify, I guess, the end of it within, a couple years or whatever.
Would they not also still burn the like current S owners like at the same time though? Like if the introduction of
it depends on when it comes, I guess.
Kind of in between a rock and a hard place, Xbox. It kind of sucks.
Indeed. But Ubisoft is definitely in a rock and a hard place. Assassin's Creed Jade is reportedly delayed to 2025. And of course, this is the mobile game, Assassin's Creed Jade. And it's part of a significant strategic shift at the developer Tencent. Of course, Ubisoft is working with them on this game. Reuters reported that Tencent, the world's largest video game company, has redeployed hundreds of staff from the team developing Assassin's Creed Jade onto its recently launched party game, Dreamstar. Assassin's Creed Jade is the mobile spin-off game in ancient China, for anyone who had forgotten, which is kind of a bummer, I feel like, because, the settings sounded interesting. Not that I would necessarily want to play an Assassin's Creed game on my phone, but yeah.
No, I take it back. I'm not going to be a cynical person. Or should I just say it?
Just say it.
At what point do you be like, all right, enough of this franchise? Like,
what?
Let's just do our idea with something, literally anything else. Literally anything else. Is Valhalla really an Assassin's Creed game? I don't know. Dan, no, I mean, I'm genuinely asking, Dan. I
No,
don't
it's
know.
not. No, it's not. You're right, but the problem is that Ubisoft has shown that they're not stopping anytime soon. They've got 6 of them planned out already, right? They're going full Kevin Feige and just like, no, we've got 7 of these bad boys in the tube ready to launch. But I agree with you. I think if some of these games were just called their own thing, that they would. I mean, I don't know if they do better, but I would prefer that for sure.
Maybe not the mobile game. That makes sense. That like you want a mobile game to have like obviously
The brand recognition.
brand recognition, of course. Duh. But like Assassin's Creed Jade. No, sorry. What was the other one? Codename Red. The Japanese
Red,
one.
yeah.
Oh, I'll walk that one back too because people have been wanting that for a long time. But like I don't know, the RPG ones. Just do like a new IP. I don't know. Do anything else. Do something that's exciting for your developers.
Valhalla and Odyssey had very little to do with being an assassin. Origins, I can totally understand the case for. It's going back. It's the origins of the order. But like, even with however they tied it into it, like that. I mean, I feel like those games could have easily just been their own epic sort of historical RPGs.
Anywho, all right.
What do these games have to do with Adam and Eve anymore? Let's be real. Are we still looking for these golden apple fragments? I don't know.
I mean, we are. Yes. Valhalla.
Okay. Well, okay. Then you know what? Give us some fucking finality then.
I
don't play these games.
Supposedly they had a final idea 10 plus years ago, but then I'm assuming Ubisoft.
That's the problem, Dan.
I agree.
It naturally ended.
Oh, I agree, but you know, doesn't mean you can't still make some good stuff. Yeah, I liked Mirage. I don't care what you guys say.
I don't know which one Mirage is. Oh, that's the new one. There was a fucking new one last year.
Yeah, but see,
was barely a blip in the fucking radar. I'm gonna be honest. That game came and went.
I enjoyed it. It was a good game, not great game.
You beat it.
Good game.
You beat it.
All right, the final street meat item that we're going to run over, Star Wars Outlaws has been rated M in 2 different regions, and those regions are Australia and Korea. So M-rated Star Wars.
Somebody quote tweeted that and saying like, there's a history with these games, with their Korean rating being released within the next 3 to 4 months after that initial rating. And then they listed the history of games. So like one of them was like the Jedi Fallen, Survivor, the new one.
One of them.
Yeah, and other games. And like it seems like if that is the case, and they listed 4 games as examples, then this game could be coming late summer, which would be big for 2024, but not big for me.
No, I'm Star Wars now, but I mean the M rating is interesting, right? At least they're doing something
That is interesting,
different,
yes.
and it does to me that signals same way with the movie business. To me, that kind of signals that maybe they're given a bit more sort of freedom in terms of their creative decisions.
Which I would like. If they're doing some big swings, then that's interesting.
Absolutely.
Han Solo appears in the first 2 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
That is not what I mean.
No, I know. I'm kidding.
That would be such a way to kill my interest, though. If they're like, "Oh, and here's another guy you like. Remember him? Oh, here we go. We're doing the same shit again."
Han Solo's got a brother, and he's in this game. I'm just kidding.
See, you make jokes, but they don't feel like jokes. Like these are all.
No.
This is being discussed in a boardroom somewhere right now.
Yeah. Do you remember in Solo when they said, "Who are you with?" I'm Solo.
Is that actually what happened? I didn't watch.
And they called, and they're like, "Okay, well, that's your name now. You're Han Solo." I was like, "This fucking movie is so funny."
I didn't.
Otherwise, it's a good movie, but like that's such a boardroom decision to have that line.
Wow. Incredible. All right. As incredible as our PXN news of the week, Dragon's Dogma 2 is upon us. Gage is crying tears of joy and maybe a tiny bit of tears of sadness from a couple things. But we have the biggest Steam Capcom single-player game ever with some huge numbers. This is Capcom's biggest Steam launch ever for a single-player game, more than 30% higher than Resident Evil 4. At this time on the 23rd, Okami posted on Twitter, 224,000 players were online at that time with a 224,000 24-hour peak. So almost 250,000 people peaking. Pretty insane for a single-player game. And yeah. And
I'm going to say it.
Oh,
I'm going to say it.
Okay.
In 2020, Elden Ring marked a shift in the gaming sphere where audiences I think are now craving any kind of experience that is outside the quote unquote Western norm, which I think this falls into very nicely. It is a game that does not hold your hand and that rewards player experience, individuality, engagement from start to bottom. What? What's up?
I see what
There's
you
a
did there.
caveat to that.
Engage.
Is that this game is also incredibly faithful to the original, which had a lot of these design principles not fleshed out fully. I mean, Elden Ring definitely kind of is a pioneer for sure, but it doesn't get all the credit. A lot of this stuff these were seeds that were planted in the original game, for sure.
What I'm saying is people were not
in terms of like what gamers want, that kind of Elden Ring kind of opened up. Yeah, I agree with you totally.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
DD1 ahead of its time.
Ahead of its time, indeed. So lots of good stuff from the game and successes, which, Gage will probably have a little bit more to say in games we're playing as well, I'm sure. But also some not so great things. Some microtransactions that don't seem great, which includes the ability to essentially buy fast travel, which is apparently not a mechanic in the game, right, Gage?
No, there's a lot of conjecture. I don't fault anyone for getting caught up in it, but no, that part's not true.
Oh, that's not true?
Yeah.
No, you cannot. So the way you fast travel is by these items you consume called fairy stones, and like you want to fast travel somewhere, if you go to your inventory, click the fairy stone. You use one of them, and it teleports you to where you are. You can't buy those. You cannot purchase those even if you want to. You can purchase, because there's only certain places you can fast travel to. You can purchase a beacon. You can purchase an extra beacon from the store, and then that lets you drop it anywhere on the map, but you still have to earn the stones to actually use the fast travel sort of system. So there's a lot of people getting crazy, getting wild with it. The microtransactions are awful. They're super unnecessary, which is the most unfortunate part about this, is that the game's not balanced around these at all. A lot of the things that are purchasable, you come across very not frequently. Some things are supposed to be rare, but you come across them in a way that feels natural and that you are earning them at a rate that feels fair, which is kind of the worst part about it, is that it's so unnecessary, and that if they had just not done that, and they being the publisher almost certainly, let's be honest, if they had just not done that, they would have been like the underdog success story of like the past couple of years. But yes, definitely the microtransaction story is unnecessary in every sort of sense of the word.
Gage and I had a private chat about this on Discord, who knows when, at some point during the last week. And yeah, I mean, everything you said is like true. Like in terms of like intent from the developers, no design was compromised in favor of like microtransactions. That is like superfluous, I guess, is the word you could do. Like you could ignore them entirely and everything stays the same, because like the gameplay 10 is still there. And yeah, it's 100% like an addition made from like C-suites at Capcom that have been doing this for every game. But like in previous games, it didn't matter, because Resident Evil 4 is Resident Evil 4. It's a giant game. That game is going to sell. People are going to talk about the single player of that game. DMC5 has its niche audience, but still, like that's like it's a big game. Dragon's Dogma 2 was like is way more niche than either of the two, and it seems like it felt like more of like a gamble to have this hit the mainstream. And then suddenly, you get these like a long list of microtransactions, and now you get like misconstruement online, and then everything is just bad word of mouth, which kind of taints the like what should have been like a big win for the devs, being like they're celebrating what people were calling a game of the year contender this early.
Right.
Kind of sucks.
It does suck. It does suck, including some possible bad PC optimization as well. The player solution is to mass slaughter NPCs. I saw that.
Yeah.
I guess you can talk about it.
That's I mean, the game is so this is one that where it's like, again, maybe the problem lies with the publishers as well, pushing a game out too early. That obviously we're no strangers to that, but it's something that I am going to call out because it is in an unacceptable state for a lot of people. So that's something that I'm no matter how much I love a game, no matter how much of a connection I have to a franchise, I'm never not going to call out bad business practice. This game was released too early. It does not run, like, it straight up just doesn't run for a lot of people. It seems to be an issue with a lot of the higher end spec systems. And this just speaks to the pattern of, like, I think my personal little conspiracy theory is that because PC components, especially the high end ones, have gotten so powerful so quickly, that I think a lot of these games that are coming out are just kind of banking on having a lot of power, so they're not really taking optimization seriously. Because at this point, it's a pattern that is so, like, I don't know how you could ignore it. There's so many games that come out, and they come out, and the developers, or maybe not the developers, but the sort of leads of the studio will come out, famously Todd Howard on Starfield, saying, well, no, the game is optimized, you just need to get a better system. And then 3 months later, you're seeing performance improvements that are like above 50%. That quite literally means that it wasn't optimized yet. That's literally what there's no other, in my mind, there's no other interpretation to that. So with Dragon's Dogma 2, we already have mods that are improving the frame rate like 20, 30%. This game was not optimized. Wasn't done. It was not done baking in the oven. There's no excuse for it. Should not have come out. And same with the microtransactions. Just to double back and make sure my position's very clear on this. The game was not designed around it. Like, the microtransactions don't take away from any of the game. They still shouldn't be there. Like, it's a dangerous precedent. I don't want this shit in single player games, specifically full price single player games. Get this shit out of here. But I think it's worth mentioning that for both of these things, I probably would surmise that the blame lies with the people in suit and ties on this one, but not acceptable.
And
acceptable.
Sneakily, Capcom has been doing this in their single player games, like Resident Evil 4 remake, for instance.
Sure.
Like, and yeah, that's definitely not a practice I want to see continued, but I have a feeling it's going to.
For sure. And I think there is a difference too, even in that, where Resident Evil 4 is much more of a linear game. Like in a weird way, the microtransactions make even less sense in that. But I think people get more anxious, and myself included, when it's supposed to be a big game that you're supposed to sink hours and hours into. When you start seeing microtransactions pop up there, it's a bit more concerning, because it's like, oh, how much am I going to be hindered by this? Whereas, like, I mean, Resident Evil 4 remake is what are we saying? 15, 20-hour experience in and out. Sort of, you've got one path, which is forward, and that's kind of it. So when it's a big expansive level, I mean, RPGs, grinding is already a mechanic. So when I start seeing, shortcuts pop up, that makes me nervous. And a lot of people rightfully so. It's overblown. A lot of people are just saying lies on Twitter about this, but the concern is genuine. I get it.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Very unfortunate. Like Christian said, the ball was in their court. This was like an underdog, totally like an underdog story with this game that, like Christian said, very niche. Fucking has been out of the spotlight for a decade, if it ever was in the spotlight, and now it comes back to this huge success, and then hindered by this.
Like, at what cost too? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this could have been such an easy win if you like.
Oh my god!
Well, the short-term gain is like a couple of bucks from some whales. Like, is that really that important to you to have like a line go up on a spreadsheet based on a couple of people buying stuff like this, as opposed to like having people like public fanfare?
Right.
So ass backwards.
Yep.
Indeed. The publishers run the world. I don't
This is why you don't get giggles from me, man. What?
I don't know.
That was awesome. Publishers run the world. Facts, though.
I should have said suits. The suits run the world. That would have been more relevant. But
girls.
Yeah. All right. The second PXN news item of the week and the last one. Marvel Rivals has been officially announced by NetEase Games, and it is a 6v6 hero shooter that blends the best of Marvel action games like Marvel Ultimate Alliance with the tactical multiplayer elements of Overwatch and Valorant. Of course, that's not me saying that. That's coming from their statement. But in Marvel Rivals, players will assemble Avengers, X-Men, Guardians, and a motley crew of heroes and villains throughout the Marvel multiverse. At launch, the roster will be 16 characters, including Black Panther, Storm, Magneto, with developer NetEase promising new heroes with each seasonal update. You can check the full roster on their website. The game is in development for PC, will be free to play, and features destructible environments players can use to alter the battlefield in their favor. Characters will have special moves and ultimate attacks like any hero shooter. Seeing Loki shapeshift into Black Panther and start clawing up people gave me my first, oh, we might be onto something here moment. But the most interesting element of Rivals are the team-up skills, which is when two heroes come together, combining their powers to unleash a devastating duo attack. In the trailer, the Hulk can use his gamma ray powers to charge up Iron Man's laser attacks. Rocket Raccoon can ride on Groot like Voltron of woodland creatures, just like they do in the movies. Hero shooters always need that one special something that makes them stand out, blah, 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 blah. Just being able to smash their powers together like kids playing with action figures is an intoxicating offer. Though Colossus and Wolverine are not on the roster yet, if they are ever added, their team-up skill better be a fastball special. This is from The Verge, Ash Parrish. Thank you. But yeah, trailer online. Did you guys check it out? What are your thoughts?
There's one more thing that I can't find that I think is the most important, is that their roadmap is inspired by Fortnite. By far, if you are going to do a live service game, you want to be as similar to Fortnite as possible, because that is the biggest live service game like ever, or currently specifically. The way that game does content updates is like, I understand why people are addicted to Fortnite, because there's something new every single week. There's an introduction of either like a new quest, some small addition of like either a weapon or a power-up. And then chapter by chapter, there's changes to the map. And then by the end of the season, it's a new map entirely. And like that kind of like, what do you call it? Like carrot on the end of a stick for like continuing to come back is why people play Fortnite so much. It is not the reason, in my opinion, people stick around games like Overwatch. And finally, I think a game that is doing the Overwatch and Valorant shtick, but is taking inspiration from Fortnite, is only going to make the competition for the games that is competing against have to do better. Because Overwatch is in a terrible state. Like, I have not wanted to touch that game in a minute. Why would I want to? The single player just got canceled after so many years of that being prominent. What was the point of Overwatch 2? I don't know. So yeah, like, even if this is not going to be my thing, I am happy that games of that sort are going to get healthy competition. Also, it's actually pretty sick seeing the heroes kind of team up, and like having destructible environments in any map, I think is going to make for cool emergent gameplay. So, I mean, it looks dope. Might not be for me, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for another MOBA personally. So it's nothing really against the game. I think what they've shown looks totally fine. Looks cool. It's kind of cool to see that the sort of arcane art style we've now seen it in a few different games since Arcane's been released. It seems like that's kind of like a new thing, a new genre of art style, and it looks gorgeous here. It looks cool. It looks really cool in motion too. Originally the roster had leaked, and I thought that maybe they were just doing that style for just the sort of menus and screens, but it's cool to see it in motion. Looks gorgeous. it's a third-person competitive shooter, so that kind of does kind of perks my ears up a little bit. This will be a game that I definitely try out and give it a go. Like I said, I'm just not sure if I'm looking to have one of those types of games in my rotation, but everything here looks totally competent for a competitive shooter, and yeah, I'm curious to see how it plays more than anything.
This is wild. I cannot believe what's about to happen because I thought this game looked incredibly mid. I was not impressed by this, and I'm the big Marvel fan,
Right?
that is always all over shit. I thought that like a lot of the attack stuff looked very bland and boring, and like it seemed very cookie cutter to me personally. And also I have concerns about this coming from NetEase because they have a long history of terrible microtransactions in their games. And of course, with it being free to play, I'm sure that will continue. But yeah, the gameplay, I couldn't get myself excited by watching it personally. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
No, I think that's totally fair.
Not at all. I think if anything, like the synergy attacks with the heroes is probably the most exciting part. But otherwise, yeah, like it doesn't look as inspired as it probably could be. I think I have like a sneaking suspicion. Part of it is like maybe the roster doesn't feel big enough. Like some of it doesn't look as exciting, and I wish there was like I don't know, maybe a bit more heroes that you could like that would fundamentally play a bit differently as opposed to what I'm seeing. But yeah, I don't know. I can see where your opinions are coming from for sure.
Time will tell on Marvel Rivals coming sometime. I don't know.
What if it feels like clunky to play? If anything, it looks like it plays kind of clunky.
Right.
Yeah. Indeed. All right, we're moving into our fantasy draft check-in. Holy shit, I just realized what time it is. We just took a shitload of time. That's okay. We're gonna get moving. Fantasy Critic, we've got some history here. Roe has counterpicked Call of Duty 2024, which means Gage has a historic number of counterpicks against him at this point in the game.
What did he counterpick?
Call of Duty 2024.
Bro shouldn't have done that.
God damn.
Shit. 3 games counterpicked on
He's not
Gage.
getting points for that. Like it might score low, but there's no way it's scoring below 70. Sorry, Ro. That was a silly thing to do.
A Treyarch game that has the
most development time ever.
Most development time ever for a Call of Duty game. I wouldn't have bet against
People are
that one.
so sour on this one too, regardless. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Attaboy, Ro. Good job.
This benefits all of us.
It does. Yeah, that's
Rosen
true.
first.
That's true. And we also got a couple of games that got some scores. Princess Peach Showtime has gotten 6 points for, of course, Christian's team. But Christian, you're not alone because I also got 6 points from Rise of the Ronin, both at 76s. Unfortunate. We were hoping.
I told
for
you,
more.
high 70s.
Yeah. I know.
Is that high or is that
More like
mid
mid 70s? It's mid 70s, yeah, but yeah.
You were right. So yeah, that's our updates. Of course, Gage got Dragon's Dogma 2 at 18 from, I think that was last week. But yeah, congrats, Gage. 18.
No, that's this week. It just came out Friday.
Oh, okay. Was it this?
I
I thought
don't-
reviews were out before that though.
They might have.
Okay.
They might have been. I don't know.
Well,
But,
it is now final. 18 points.
18 points. I'll take it.
Hell yeah.
What the fuck are you? What is this?
What?
Sorry.
I'm petting my dog because he was fucking going crazy.
I was highlighting
doesn't have
something
a
on
dock.
Oh.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Who put that there? What the fuck?
So that wasn't.
That was somebody.
That's funny.
Yeah, trolling Gage. All right.
It was in the dock, probably.
I believed it.
I had a whole thing written out about this, but we're running fucking extremely late on time, so I'm just gonna gloss over it, unfortunately. But the finale of Halo, the series, was absolutely amazing for me personally. I thought that the episode was incredible. I think it has a huge potential for season 3 with how they're leaving it, and by far is the best episode of Halo the series we've gotten from both seasons. And this is the best 2 episodes back to back that the series has had ever as well. So very happy with what we got from this finale. And there's so many things that I wrote down here that I loved from it, but I'm not going to go through all of them because we're already running super late on time. But Chief versus Arbiter fight, that was delicious.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the Halo season 2 finale. I thought, absolutely the best episode of Halo we've ever gotten. I thought there was some stuff in there where I was like, this is some of the coolest shit I've ever seen. And then there was some stuff in there where I was like, this is some of the worst shit I've ever seen. But overall, fantastic episode of television, or a pretty good episode of television. And the best episode of Halo. I agree with that totally. And the Arbiter versus Master Chief fight scene was cool. That scene alone has kind of justified the whole series for me, just getting that, because that's so cool, and it was faster and more kinetic than any cutscene that we could have gotten in a video game. So that was awesome.
Thank you, CW.
Thanks, CW.
Jesus Christ. It is awake because you are here. All right, moving into what you got for me. Dan, what do you got for me? I have been using my new library card with the audiobook podcast service, Libby. Thank you, Christian, for directing me to that, because that was such a great idea on my walks with the dog. I've been reading this book by listening to it, and this is the first of the Forerunner trilogy by Greg Bear, who has unfortunately passed away now. But just reading this book, I'm just very, very happy with it thus far. I'm on like chapter 6, I think, and it's very good, very good. I've always heard good things about them, and I'm happy to get going on them.
When I was in grad school, I used Libby as like supplementary because I was having to read so much so often, having a full-time job and full-time school. Like, I did not have time to read everything all the time. So I would use like workout time and chore time to like have to finish reading. I would switch over to Libby. And the cool thing about like audiobooks is like I still count it as reading, but it is kind of different. And like some books do get like added texture where like there's like voice acting in a way when they're reading, and there's like sometimes they do like music and stuff that's just like, this is a different way to experience this, and it's kind of cool.
Yes, and this one does that too. What you're saying, it is cool. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
The only
bad. It must be nice. Like, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just gonna say the only bad thing is they only let you rent it for 2 weeks. So my 2 week just ran out today. So I have to wait another, I think it said 6 weeks to get it back, because there's like 3 other people waiting for it. So it's like shit.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah. All right. Christian,
Bro, what you got for us? I've got nothing.
We love you, bro.
Yeah. Last week I said I'm getting the Helldivers Platinum before this week. I indeed did get the Helldivers Platinum before, and I have completed that game. So some of us are more democratic than the others. Just putting that out there. But if you need help with the Helldivers Platinum, let me know. It's a pretty fun platinum to get. I also am like nearing the end of Final Fantasy VII. I'm like approaching 60 hours, and there's a segment that I. What a weird game! What a weird game! Because the first half of this game is like mostly mini games that is still fun, but it's different. And then the second half is like, now let's situate you more into the actual plot and events of like the actual game, and it's so fucking good. There's a lot of moments in the back half that are like making me emotional. It's like, wow, I didn't think I cared about this silly game as much as I did. And this is off the backs of me like not really enjoying Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I'm really enjoying Rebirth a lot, and yeah, not be one of my favorites of the year by the time I finish it. Actually, it already is. So downloaded 2 more games that I will get to in future.
Right now. You already made me wait until the episode.
Yeah, hold on. That I'll get to in future what you got for me's. But I also did one other thing. I was like, you know, if I'm downloading these games to play for work, what am I going to play for me? What's next for me? At the end of I'm nearing the end of Rebirth. What's next for me? I decided Balatro is going to be one of them. I haven't downloaded that yet. I need to buy it. But I was like, what's free right now for me to get before I even start my time with this next thing? And I downloaded the Dragon's Dogma 2 character creator. I am so stoked to sit down and make my character as detailed as I can get it to look like me. Have my pawn be my GF. That way when I start the game, I'm ready to go. I can skip all that, go straight to gaming. I'm so excited to make my character today. Why are you shaking your head no?
You're such a tease. That's why. You're all. Never mind. I'm not gonna get into it. But yeah, the character creator is a great idea. That more.
Yeah, fuck you.
No, fuck you. The character creator is great for that exact reason. When the game finally came out, because I downloaded the character creator when it came out, which was like weeks ago. And then yeah, it was awesome that as soon as the thing came up, it was like import character, boom, done. Don't have to worry about that because I can't help but spend like 40 minutes in those things, and like on release night, it definitely gets in the way of like your messes up the flow. So good on Capcom for doing that, for releasing that,
and good on me for downloading it.
Gage, what you got for me?
More of the finals because it's awesome and continues to be awesome. And just a lot of Dragon's Dogma 2, which, as we said earlier, is quite the video game. It's quite the accomplishment in open world RPGs. Very cool. It in a lot of ways, it's kind of. It doesn't quite reach the levels of Elden Ring, I don't think, even for somebody like myself who's not a FromSoft fan. Like, I wanted it to be my Elden Ring. I don't think it quite reaches that same high, but it does a lot of things that I prefer over Elden Ring. It's not like just ridiculously difficult for the sake of being difficult. It's kind of got a nice flow to combat. It's got a nice ramp up in terms of difficulty and in terms of leveling. And it's just an incredibly faithful sequel, which is what I wanted. I didn't discover Dragon's Dogma until like the pandemic, 2019 or 2020, early 2020, I think. And by the time I discovered it, I was like, oh, this game's fucking awesome. It feels good now in today's current age. Like, wow, this game's so ahead of its time. But we're definitely never getting another one because it's been, 8 years. So, of course, we're not getting another one. So, very cool that not only this game came out and that it got the full sort of AAA blockbuster treatment, but it also ended up being incredibly faithful to the first game and not doing what so many big game companies do nowadays, which is just try and incorporate other popular things from the genre into its newest entry. So, shout out to Capcom. Shout out to the guys to the developers of this incredible game because it's awesome. Rewards exploration. I haven't even done a quest in like probably 3 or 4 hours of playtime. I'm literally just running around exploring and doing cool stuff. The AI is incredible. I just before we started this podcast, I was escorting a NPC, not wanting to deal with combat. I just kept running forward and mashing the to me button so everybody would follow me. And I turned behind me and I see Stilgar actually. Stilgar gets picked up by a harpy and flown up. He gets dropped, and before he hits the ground, another harpy comes in and catches him in midair and continues to fuck with him. And stuff like this just happens all the time. And it's not big, it's not set pieces, it's not scripted. It's just the AI is incredible in this game. Also, why I'm assuming it has really bad performance is because it's incredibly CPU heavy. But it's an amazing game. It's absolutely a game of the year contender. And yeah, it's just great. It's exactly what I wanted from this sequel.
And Gage told you about it years ago when he was crying for a sequel. We
Correct.
finally got it.
We finally got it.
All right. To the topic of the show where we finally got a good look at Judas, and we got a bit of an interview of Ken Levine from Ryan McCaffrey and Jeff Keighley. So just to give us a high-level idea of what's going on story-wise, I highlighted just this section here just to read off from IGN's news story here. Story-wise, you play as Judas, a young woman aboard the Mayflower, a city-sized spaceship on a multi-generational mission to save humanity by transporting what's left of it from Earth to a new planet called Proxima Centauri. You start the game having being reprinted, yes, meaning you were dead, where you'll wake up and begin interacting with the holographic projections of the 3 leaders who run the ship. Tom, the ship's head of security, who wants to protect all of humanity by ensuring that the Mayflower's original mission stays on course. Nefertiti, I hope that's right. I don't want to say that the way I was thinking it in my head. Anyways.
It's definitely not that. I think it's like Nefertiti.
Yeah.
Or Titty.
Yeah, sure. She is the ship's Nobel Prize-winning doctor who wants to create a civilization of full robots with no human flaws, and Hope, who wants your help deleting herself because the existential crisis of her existence leads her to the conclusion that deletion is the only way to end her suffering. Further complicating matters is that the 3 of them are a family. Tom and Nefertiti, I can't fucking say it, were married, and Hope was their adopted daughter. It's up to you to decide with whomever you feel like, but whatever choice you make has consequences. Doing a favor for Tom might piss off Hope and or Nefertiti, and I just did it.
Wow.
And vice versa. The constant push and pull is at the heart of Judas's player-driven narrative, and it means that no 2 playthroughs are ever likely to be the same. That's the narrative Legos in action and what we talk a lot about in the course of the interview. Of course, I recommend you watch the full interview. There is a lot of good stuff in there. I listened to the whole thing and thought both Jeff and Ryan had some very good questions for Ken, and went a lot more in depth. Ken went a lot more in depth with kind of describing some of the gameplay mechanics and such than I thought he would. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, in terms of my first thoughts, I guess, before let me just go over Jeff's quick thoughts and then I'll tell you mine. So Jeff's very quick thoughts on Twitter were, a few weeks ago, I had a chance to play 5 hours of Judas, the next game from BioShock creator Ken Levine. Here are my thoughts on what Ken has been working to crack the past decade. A rich story game with a flexible narrative plus characters that are truly alive as you play. So that's a very quick synopsis. He has like a 7 or 8 minute video where he talks about it. Jeff does. But obviously I'm not going to go over all that. There's a lot to go over. But one of the things I really took away from this is this game is very much taking a lot of the procedural stuff that we kept hearing about Starfield, that Starfield was gonna change, single player games with procedural generation and all of this. It feels like and sounds like, based on Jeff and Ryan's actual 5-hour playthrough of this game, that this game may actually crack the code on that. Like, they were talking about at one point where they were walking through one of the linear handcrafted areas of the world, and they seamlessly just walked into one of the procedural areas, and they had no idea that it was a procedural area. It was seamless going into that area, and you didn't notice like a difference, essentially. Like, you're picking it up as you go. Like, you're seeing all these new areas being created, but you don't, notice that this isn't being handcrafted necessarily at one time. But like, this opens up a lot of cool possibilities, because like they were talking about interacting with the characters in the world can be completely different on every playthrough that you do. So like, you could have a really close relationship with one character and then the other two hate you, or like, I just feel like this opens up a ton of possibilities with creating a living world that actually feels like it's reacting to you as opposed to you reacting to the world. I don't know. But did you guys have I don't know if you guys had time to watch all of it or listen to all of it, or if you guys have any thoughts on what we've been hearing about it thus far. I know there's more we can break down here. I don't know if you want me to break it down for you first and then talk about it more, or
I'll jump in quickly just because I didn't have time to watch it. I didn't watch any of it.
Okay.
And I've not even completed BioShock 1 yet, so I probably have the least. I don't really have a dog in this fight so much. I will say a lot of this stuff sounds really interesting. Like Daniel said, it sounds really cool. But we've heard this a lot in video games where they say like, "Oh, the world truly reacts to you, and you don't react to it." And sometimes it just kind of ends up being basic, sort of like, "Oh, well, you chose that person, so that plot line ended, and now this other one starts." So this all sounds really cool, and it sounds kind of very innovative, and I hope it turns out to be. But I haven't sat down, didn't watch the interview, so time will tell. But I want it to kind of actually turn out to be these things as opposed to just another kind of game. Like, I mean, you could make the argument that like I don't know. I'm not even gonna go down the rabbit hole. But yeah, if this ends up scratching even a surface of what they're kind of talking about, I think it'll be pretty impressive, and it'll be a nice return for Ken Levine, who's kind of been in the shadows for a little bit. So I'm hoping that this game turns out to be really cool. I love the setup and the story premise. The multi-generational ship off in the void of space. Sign me up for that. That's really cool. I love this sort of low sci-fi, kind of dark, grounded stuff. It also seems like it's going to have a lot of kind of the same sort of political undertones that the BioShock had, which is cool. I like that stuff too. So I am cautiously, not even cautiously, I guess I'm more from the outside looking in, not super into it. But if it ends up being a game that gets a lot of huge buzz and a lot of people like the way it plays, then I'll jump in for sure.
Well, I listen to the FPS podcast instead of Jeff and Ryan because I just gravitate towards the FPS hosts in their respective outlets. Lucy at GameSpot, Jake at
Game Ranks.
Is it Game Rant?
Game Ranks.
Game Ranks. Ralph at Skill Up. So that's usually where I will go listen to the people that I just like listen on a week to week basis more than others. That's just like a preference thing. And I'm of two minds here. I'll save the positive stuff after. The only negative thing I have is is just the narrative front. Like, I've played 2 Ken Levine games, BioShock 1, stay in the middle, BioShock 1, and BioShock Infinite. Of the 2, I think I prefer 1 over Infinite in terms of narrative only. Gameplay wise, like, let's be real, Infinite plays. Infinite will probably still hold up as like gameplay wise, like that felt really good to play at that time. Even like that was like 2013 was like this feels fucking really good to play. Narrative wise, like I like Ken Levine. He's well read and he's like well versed in a lot of pulling from different like texts and movies and obviously like the criticism and theory. Infinite didn't hit for me like. Narrative wise, like he had a lot to say, but he said it in a way that like I don't think it meant to come out the way he was trying to make it come out, which was disappointing. I'll put it that way. But that's not to say like the game altogether is bad, because like I was trying to think about how to talk about this today all day, and it's like, okay, well, The Last of Us Part 2 is a game that I love. That game probably has like just as bad criticisms, if maybe even worse than BioShock Infinite. Like akinning a race, not a race of people, like one of the factions in TLU 2 to what is essentially Palestinians is pretty fucking horrible for Neil Druckmann to do, right? But that doesn't mean like we can't also talk about like the prices of the game, which I think the best thing Ken Levine is doing is everything with the gameplay. The inspiration from obviously like where the studio came from, it's like System Shock and Prey Moon Crash is interesting. But to me, like everything that Jake, Lucy, and Ralph talked about, like emergent gameplay, was like actually inspiring. And it was like the thing that Gage just mentioned, like time will tell like how it's going to shape out. Like they talked about their experience with the 5 hours and everything sounded like actually like it was already working. And this is even before the preview stage. Like there was a moment where they talked about like how there's no skill trees in the game and everything that's like upgrade is based on like how you perform in an arena. Like if you accidentally shoot a barrel and that barrel causes damage or kills an enemy, that will like pause the game in like some kind of weird thing where like Judas is looking at code on the screen because she's thinking and she's like, I wonder if I can like do this and I will upgrade my weapon by suddenly you have like a side objective of like, if I kill 3 more enemies in this way, I can permanently upgrade my gun to like have an additional power up, and it's solely through discovery of gameplay. And I was like, this is good. This is like exactly what I'm kind of looking for in all kinds of games, like whether it be Dragon's Dogma or Elden Ring. Like that's cool. But to do that with also procedural generation is interesting. I want to know more about how that's working. Like the way I heard them talk about it, like they were talking about like sockets, like not narrative Legos, but like the sockets of like how these systems interact. I didn't get it. I would need to see it for me to get it. But I'm really curious. And then like the roguelike elements, I think might help punctuate all of this together. So I don't know. I'm kind of like really optimistic with how the game gameplay wise is going to shape out.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that Ken addressed in the interview was that, Ryan asked him, why the hell is it taking you 11 years or 10 years, whatever it's been, to make this game? Like, what the hell's taken so long? And Ken basically was like, we had to figure this out. Like, the whole procedural stuff, like, we had never done anything like this before. It's not something that's an easy task to do because no one's really done it well before. And so like the fact that they're kind of basically slamming their heads, I guess, against the wall, trying to figure out how best to implement this strategy to make the world feel more reactive to the player as opposed to the player reacting to the world is super fascinating.
Dan, did you play Deathloop?
I have not yet, but I'd like to.
My biggest complaint with Deathloop is like they like marketed that game as like player freedom, especially with like an arcane game, like a linear, not non-linear gameplay is obviously like it's an immersive sim, like that's where that game like lives and breathes. But like the narrative did not reflect that. Like it was very much like follow the marketer essentially. Everything that I heard about this game with their approach to narrative is like totally hands off, which is wild to like try to wrap my head around. Where like these three people are like constantly at odds with what your like main objective is, like sabotaging you or like changing the way the narrative is shaping out based on like who you're doing missions for or like how you're even like the play style is. Like if you're doing more stealth, the game recognizes that you're like more of a stealth player and will like throw AI at you that makes the stealth harder for you to do and like kind of have you change up your gameplay. Like that kind of stuff is like, okay, cool. The game is learning not just gameplay wise what I'm doing, but also narrative wise, and then changing that. I understand why it would take 10 years to do that because like that is crazy to try and figure out. These devs are kind of crazy for that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's not lost on me that it's insane that a publisher like 2K would allow him to work for that amount of time, basically untouched, in order to make this game. And obviously they do the same thing with Rockstar for Grand Theft Auto, but you have to think Grand Theft Auto's player base is extremely massive compared to what this game's going to do. Even if it's a really great game, I don't think this game's going to sell 100 million copies. But it is that tricky area as well, though, because as we talked about in our private chat and as we've talked about on this podcast before, what 2K did in order for this game to happen in the first place was shitty.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, with how they treated Irrational Games was not a great way about it. And of course, all of this is rumors, speculation, because nobody's going to confirm this, but the rumors at the time were that Ken Levine was wanting out. He was wanting to create his own independent development studio to create something like what this game ended up being and do something from scratch. And he wanted a small team to like build this out and figure out what it would become. And 2K basically went to him and was like, no, you can stay. We'll let you do it here. And then basically let go of 80% of Irrational Games at that point, which is very unfortunate. Definitely worth pointing out that that's a shitty practice on 2K's behalf. But in terms of this game, like the gameplay mechanics are super fascinating as well, like you alluded to, Christian. Like even something as simple as like the hacking mechanic, it adds another depth of layer on your combat strategy. Like one example that I remember they showed was you're fighting like a robot, and it sounds like such a stupid thing, but like you could basically make the robot leak oil, and then you have like
yes.
an oil spill there, and you can use that to your advantage, like for environmental purposes. You can light it on fire and then light a bunch of other things on fire. Like even like that kind of stuff. It's simple in idea, but like it's super cool.
I think Lucy was talking about like their approach to gameplay is like the AI is using automation. Like I think she called it was the if this then that. But like a lot of the AI will react to like those kinds of inputs, which I think is going to make for interesting like how you said, like the hacking thing will make that has like countless possibilities where like if you do something, the AI will react to differently. And I don't know. I guess we touched on it last week, but like they have to be using machine learning in some capacity to like help write like literally the AI in this game to function the way it is, especially with like procedural generation with the environment too, which I think puts the industry in kind of an interesting place where like if they can leverage machine learning to like make more robust and emergent gameplay, that's kind of a cool thing to leverage in that regard. Obviously, you need developers and humans to run that kind of AI. It's not a generative AI. It's not replacing humans, but that's kind of cool. That's kind of neat to think about.
Yeah, and using it in a way that actually improves the game, not makes it just more cookie cutter and makes it less less interesting. And I also kind of one last thing as well that I was thinking, the character designs in this game are really cool. I very much enjoyed seeing all the different crazy robot ideas that they came up with. Like the little the deputy bots that they have are these like BoJack Horseman-esque characters that have the rifle in their hand, and they were originally created to defend this city spaceship or whatever you want to call it. And then the world got hacked. I'm sorry, that's something we didn't talk about. The ship was hacked, or it stopped functioning at the start of the game. That's kind of one of the hooks of the game as well, that you play Judas, and Judas is kind of the one that fucked everything up, and you're just trying to figure out why and how that happened. And so like, you know, these BoJack Horseman-esque security bots all of a sudden start turning on you, and then they have this really crazy look to them, like they're friendly, but then they're like not friendly at all. It's just really creepy. And then like there was another one that was a dentist chair, where it was literally like a dentist chair with all these like contraptions as its arms and appendages and stuff, and it just had the fucking craziest face to him. Like I just love their character design. It's so good in this game.
My take after listening to people talk about the game for an hour is like, even if it won't come together, which is like what an early thing for me to say, because like we haven't even seen a preview build of this game, or like, you know, the game in a more functioning final state or near final state, is like they're taking big swings, and like as an industry, that's pretty cool. Like to do something that's like so definitive, like outside the norm of what we expect in games, is, if it's not applaudable, it's like commendable in a way. Like I don't know, I'm one that like champions every week like games that are doing something that is different, and like the games that are like insisting on themselves like in a healthy way, even if it's just art style. Yeah, I don't know. You can't help but hope for this game to do well, and I think, I don't know, even if it is like being reduced down to BioShock in space, like having a Ken Levine game is something like big in the industry. Like for 2K, like that is going to mean something. It will have cultural cachet, and you know, you never want to root against the game that's like taking big swings like this. So I'm very excited to at least check this out, and you know, hands on, find out for myself like what my thoughts are on it eventually. Don't know when, but yeah.
Yeah, and for me, like I've never been disappointed by a Ken Levine game. Like, you know, you talked about BioShock Infinite not being quite as good as the original BioShock. Both of those games I still hold in very high regard. I know you aren't as big on the Infinite storyline, but personally, I fucking loved both Infinite and the original BioShock story, and loved the twists that they introduced in those games. And that's the kind of stuff that I love from Ken's games that he makes and the worlds that he builds. It's just really cool to see that kind of stuff. One thing or a couple things to add as well, that we kind of missed, but the main character also has memory loss, which affects, of course, the narrative. It has some roguelike elements, like you talked about, Christian. Judas can regenerate herself, probably after dying. And also, if you die, you lose all your items and can earn resources for upgrades as well, which that whole upgrade tree is not existent. It's a different structure entirely for upgrades. And the other thing is, I've seen a ton of people that aggregated this information from other outlets say that this is BioShock in space, which I thought there was some outlets that were saying from Ken Levine, acting like he said that. And I watched that entire interview and I was like, well, no, Ken never said that. So I was very confused when people were calling it BioShock in space, other than, people are inferring that based on what we've seen. Because in the interview, actually, I thought it was fascinating because Ken even says at one point, he's like, we knew that when we showed that first trailer, people were going to say that this is very BioShock inspired, but this game is a lot more than just that. This game definitely takes what we've learned over the course of our other games and applies that, but we're not just that game, So I thought that was very fascinating. I definitely recommend people watch the full interview. There's a lot there, and over an hour long video. But
when do we see it?
I think 2025 is when it releases. I think we'll see it again this year at some point, but I think it'll release 2025 at this point.
Before or after Grand Theft Auto 6?
After, probably. It depends. If GTA 6 is March, then I think after. But
if we see anywhere this year, it's the Game Awards. I don't see it coming anytime sooner than that. And as late in the year as you can get it, but I don't know.
For sure.
Time will tell.
Time will tell indeed.
God, you're so right.
And you know who else is right? All of our fans that are watching us. Thank you, Kirk and Glenn, for being in the chat. And thank you to everyone joining us live on YouTube and Twitch, as well as podcast services everywhere, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Gage. I am Daniel, and this has been Podcast PXN, and we are out, bro. We'll see you next week. Much love, and keep on gaming.
Oh.
Adios.